Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. We were looking at exception handling in Python, and in this video we are going to study how we can instantiate or instantiating the exception class. Now what do we understand by instance? Well, everything in Python is a class, and in order to perform any method that is written inside that particular class, we need to create an object or an instance of that class. Right. So what do we mean by instance? An object? An object is associated with a class, but we were dealing with exception handling. Yes, each and every exception in Python is treated as a class. Every exception is a class, and there is a complete hierarchy of classes that are present in the exception handling concept, right? So let us have a view on this. Now on your screen there is a chart which says that the base exception is the supreme or the most super class that is available with us. Now, for that base exception, there are certain subclasses which are actually inheriting, the base exception. So they are exception, system exit, generator exit, keyboard interrupt, and so on, right? And there are another level beneath exception, which is the attribute error, the arithmetic error. This is in turn having the zero division error or the floating point error as their subclasses. And we have seen the arithmetic error as the zero division error also. We have the lookup error that has the index error. We have the value error. We have the type error. And there are certain errors which are associated with the operating system, such as the file not found error and the interpreted error. So on your screen, this is the complete hierarchy in which all these boxes are having the class name inside it. Right now, what happens, how this exception handling works? Now, that is something very important to understand. Every exception in Python is a class. Whenever an exception rises, by default, the Python virtual machine, that is the PVM, creates an object of that exception class. In a code, suppose a statement have a variable divide by 0, then the Python virtual machine creates an object of zero division error class. Then it will be looking for the handling code, the code that we write in the except block. If there is an exception, then the object is created. The next step is to look up for the handling code. Right now, if that handling code is there, then it's okay. That particular handling code will be executed. Otherwise, the programs will get terminated and there will be a traceback on your screen. Now that is how the exception handling works in Python, right? So let us go to the Python screen and see how we can actually work with these classes in programming, right? And how we can create an object and explicitly ask the object to print the message in the except block. Let us see. So here on your screens, let me first write the hierarchy, because here we are dealing with the zero exception error, zero division error. So the main class is the base exception. Python is case sensitive, so it is written in camel case. And its subclass is exception. And its subclass is arithmetic exception, and below this was zero division error. So that was the hierarchy, right? So that was the hierarchy. Now what we want to do is, we said that everything is an exception, and if exception occurs, then we create an object, internally, and then the working is done like that. So can we actually access that particular object or not? Let us see. So here you can see that the zero division error is, is the exception which is going to rise because of this print statement. So what I'm going to write over here is except, right? And I'm going to write zero division error. Now this is the name of my class, and I can use the class name in the, with the except clause over here. And in order to create an object of this particular class, let me just use any variable. So now here message will be the object of zero division class. So internally, whenever zero division error occurs, there will be an object, and here I am referring that object with the variable name msg, right? And here what I can do is, let me just edit and write few more print statements over here. I'm going to print uh, first of all the type of message, so that we can actually understand that yes, it is an object. So type of message, right? So what is the type of message, or let us say what is the type of exception? That will be much better. Type of exception. And what I'm going to write is comma the type, and inside it I'm going to pass my object. So that is the first thing that I want to print, right? The next thing that I want to print is the name of the exception, right? So the exception is, and here I'm going to type with the class name. Just watch carefully. This is the object name, that is the message dot underscore underscore class, right? So I'm going to write this over here. And one more thing, print the exception description. And in this description, I am going to print my message, right? And there is no need of this statement right now. So what I did is, I'm just asking, okay, this is message. Now, what is the type of this message? Exception is occurring, only then this except is going to evaluate. Otherwise, this except does not get evaluated, right? So what is the class of this exception? We are saying that all the exceptions are classes, right? And the exception description, okay, it is something, the type is something, right? Okay, it is a class, but what is the significance of that class? So that is the description. So let me just run the code and see. Enter A, and this time I'm going to enter 10 and 0, and you can see that the type of the exception is class zero division error, right? The exception is of course zero division error. The exception description is division by zero, right? So that is how by which we are actually creating an object and visualizing that data associated with that object. Now what I want to do is, I am going to change this zero division error with higher level exception, which is the arithmetic error. It is not arithmetic exception, this is arithmetic error. That is my bad, arithmetic error. Now let us see what we are going to get as the output. If I run the code and will give the same output over here, you can see even if I have written the arithmetic error, because the exception is of zero division, I am still getting the same answer. That means this is actually inheriting this one. So what is all these, the error that are there in, it is actually giving us this particular answer only. Now let us check it for all other things. So let me just go for exception, right? Let us run the code again and visualize what we are going to get as the answer. So I'm again giving 10, I'm again giving 0, and you can see I got the same answer over here. So what do we really understand by this behavior? We can understand that arithmetic error exception is capable of handling zero division error, floating point error, and overflow error. Exception is able to handle attribute error, arithmetic error, end of file error, name error, and so on, along with these lower level exceptions also. And base exception is able to handle all the exception classes that are given over here, right? So this is containing all of them. Exception is containing all these one, arithmetic error is containing these three, lookup is containing these two, OS is containing these four, right? So that is what we understood by that particular code. Now, one more thing that we are going to study now is multiple except block, right? So is it possible to have multiple except blocks with us? See, in the previous example, we have seen two different types of, exceptions in this particular program only. First is the zero division error, and the second one was the value error, right? Because we entered different value for B. Now, what I want is to let me just delete this particular print statement and let it be till here, right? So here I am going to write one exception, that is the zero division error, as let's say message, and I will be writing one more except block which is saying except value error as let's say value message, right? So it is a different variable over here, and what I'm going to do is to print the same statements like here and like here, right? And in place of message I'm going to write value message, and here also I'm going to write value message. So what I did over here is, see, now this particular try statement can have two different types of error. First is zero division and second one is value error, right? So now when this try fails, an exception occurs. And that exception, we have seen that it can have two types. Either it can be zero division error or it can be value error. So here we have written two different except blocks to handle two different types of exceptions. Let us see what we are going to get as the answer. So here I am going to enter 10 and here I am going to enter 1. Now this is wrong, this is value error. Let us see what happens. The exception is value error and the description is invalid literal for int, that is base 10, 1 is wrong input. Working very fine. Now let us run this code again, and here I am going to write as 10 and here I am going to write 0, and now this time I am able to handle zero division error and the description says division by 0. So in Python it is perfectly fine to handle different types of errors in the same code, by using multiple except blocks, right? So that is also possible in Python, right? Next thing is that we should be very careful while we are using these multiple excepts. Then we should be very careful about the hierarchy. Now what is that, the issue with the hierarchy? Let me just tell you one thing. See, here is the zero division error. Suppose I'm dealing with only the zero division error this time, and let me just paste this zero division error over here. And I know that arithmetic error is also one type of exception class, and I'm going to mention this over here. Remember, the higher order class I have mentioned first, right? Now if I run the code, let us see what happens. And let me just also do something. Let me just change these print statements, because these print statements I'm using these methods, and these methods is going to give the zero division error every single time. Suppose we do not know about this underscore underscore class method. What I need is, I am writing my own customized print statement. Now this is an arithmetic error, right? Now this is one statement inside this, and here I am going to write another print statement which says this is zero error, right? It is zero division error, right? Now if I let me again rerun the code, sorry, let me just clear it, and let me just rerun the code. And if I now give input which is going to raise zero division error, the answer will be this is an arithmetic error. Remember that if you put the higher order class first, then at that point of time, the first except method will be, getting the priority. Let me just change the order, because see, as soon as this exception is raised, it is going to see in this sequence, right? It is going to see from top to bottom. So it is going to find arithmetic error, and arithmetic error we have seen that it was capable of handling zero division error, right? So the control didn't go to the next except block because this except block was able to handle it, right? So we need to be very careful about the sequence. So if I just cut and paste it, because the control will go from up to down, If I now again rerun, then the answer should be zero division error, because the first except block is going to handle it, and that except block is for zero division error, right? So we need to be actually very much aware about the, this particular way of handling, different exceptions. One more thing is that, is it really necessary to, make different multiple exceptions? Can we write a single except block and handle multiple errors? Is it possible? Now let us see. We have seen that in this same example, there were two different types of errors that were available. First was zero division error. Of course, we are going to see this again and again. And the next one is value error. So can I write it like this? Value error. Is this thing is possible in Python? Let us see. And for this particular thing, let me just make a customized print statement and use this v message as the object. So I'm going to write as exception description again, and over here I will be printing v message, right? And here, this is the same example in which we have actually used multiple except block. Now let us see, is this works very fine. So if I run the code, yes, it's working. It is 10 and it is 0. Now this is 0 exception error. Yes, it is working very fine. Let me rerun the code. Enter 10 and enter another thing, which is right. It is working very fine. So it is not necessary that every single time you are going to, make different except block. We can also handle multiple exceptions in a single block. And we can also make a default exception, right? Now this is exception, and we know that in the hierarchy, which is the highest class, that was the base exception, which was actually able to handle each and every exception that can occur, right? So we can make a default except block which can actually handle all errors, right? So if zero division error or value error occurs, you are going to go to this except block, and if any other exception occurs, other than these two, we are going to the base exception class, because we know that tops the hierarchy and that class is able to handle each and every exception. Right. So that was a simple lecture in which we studied about the instantiation of exception classes. And of course, we understood that all exceptions are classes. And we just tried to write certain code for multiple excepts and also for default excepts, right? I hope that you understood this lecture. And for more such lectures on Python, stay tuned to my channel. Thank you.